What was the first event that disproved your childhood belief that the world is a safe place? Growing up in South Africa. Edit, some stories. When we came home once a man was robbing our home. He came out and tried to pull my mother out of the car. I was maybe 8. He ran away. About 5 minutes later my dad shows up, asks which way he went and races off with his gun in one hand and the steering wheel in the other. My neighbor got murdered in his car outside his home. My aunt's neighbor was raped and murdered by Moses Satole. I was around 9 when I heard this, but it happens when I was 5. 9/11 rocked my adolescence. The world didn't feel right after that. I remember watching the news in English class and seeing the second plane hit. The teacher got real nervous before saying, "You guys stay here, I have to call my sister, oh my God." I later heard that my US history teacher left the school mid-class because his son was in one of the towers. One of the toughest men I've ever met was a sobbing mess. Did the son die? Yes, he did. Really sad story, he was named his father's friend who had died in the Vietnam War. 2 Billies, both died too young. When I overheard my aunts and uncles talking about Adam Walsh. A stranger took a child, that was roughly my age, and cut his head off. The thing that really got me was my uncle saying, God knows what else he did to him. I grew up in Miami, same age as Adam when he was taken, and my mother said we were at the Hollywood Mall he was taken from the same day. She said it fucked with her head for many years. I didn't know about it till quite a while later. She kept me sheltered from the truth and news when it happened. Edit, since the post has garnered a lot of attention, I'll add that we moved within the year. Went to Atlanta. My mother once told me that she wanted to leave the dangers of the city. Not sure Atlanta was the best choice when it came to safe schools and housing. When I was around 6 or 7 years old, a heroin addict overdosed in the alley behind my building. Some hours later his mother found him and cried hysterically while cradling him in her arms. I remember getting a sick feeling in my stomach, not being able to fully comprehend what I was seeing, yet still feeling uneasy and exposed to a horrible truth. I believe this ensured I would never ever touch heroin. This image is burned into my brain. My house was burgled when I was 10 and the thief broke in through my room and ransacked the house. I remember standing in my room and thinking a stranger has been through my things. My privacy felt completely invaded. My home, and my room wasn't safe anymore. Nowhere was safe. I didn't sleep very well for a while after that. Did they catch the burglar? Nope. They found some of our things dumped a few kilometers away, but that was about it. I walked to school and saw a man hanging dead from a tree almost right by the entrance. I was around 6 or 7 at the time. When I was 9 or 10 I was walking home from school and had my head down since I was listening to music. Since my head was down I didn't notice the guy laying on the sidewalk with his brain leaking out until I was basically standing in the pool of blood. I lived in a gang-ridden area of Las Vegas and apparently someone ripped off the wrong dude and he was shot in the face execution style. I waited with a few of the person's neighbors to talk to the police, but once they found out I had just stumbled upon everything they offered to drive me home down the block. It was pretty fucked up for a 10-year-old to see that, but I don't think it had any lasting effects. There was a girl from my year raped and murdered. It was pretty horrific. We walked home most of the way together, but she lived about 5 streets away. We'd say goodbye at the turnoff to my street. Can remember it was starting to get dark and her mom coming to my house and asking if she's come home with me. We weren't what you'd call friends, but she'd come to my birthday party in addition to us walking home, so I think by that point her mom was getting desperate. It was a pretty horrific case as well. I can remember my mom sitting on my bed just holding me and crying the day they found her body. Similarly, my sister was classmates with one of the girls this man murdered. Turned out he lived in a neighborhood very close to ours. All of that happened maybe 5 minutes away from us. It's a small town, quiet, those murders really shook the community hard. But looking back at where he lived, sometimes all I can think is, what if he had followed my sister home? I was old enough to understand the concept of death, but these girls weren't just killed, they were abducted at gunpoint, raped, tortured, tied up for weeks before he drowned them in his toilet and tossed their bodies in the river. The news kept repeating gruesome details about it all. It was a lot to process as an adolescent. And the worst part is he wasn't found for years, so it was an open, unsolved serial killer case in a town that was shocked whenever there was a robbery. It wasn't until he abducted a girl years later in another state, who escaped and he ended up being killed by police, that his DNA tied it back to my town. On my 10th birthday party, a woman off her bipolar meds ran her car into a concrete underpass right in front of my house. The car instantly was on fire. Having my birthday party go from all happiness to the smell of a burning body and panic within 30 seconds still bothers me 15 years later. My father worked for a large US company, and when I was 8 he got a promotion and we moved to Mexico City. This was in the late 70s. A year later the company issued us 24-hour bodyguards. Guns were a rare thing in Mexico back then, but these guys were all armed. Walls around the house were made taller and reinforced doors were added. We had a checklist of questions by the phones in the house detailing what questions to ask in the event of a kidnapping. Several executives were kidnapped and or murdered by strikers, and for the next 5 years we didn't go anywhere without security. I was 5 and remember watching the Challenger space shuttle blow up. We were watching that in school. The TVs were quickly turned off. When I was 5, my 11-year-old neighbor locked me in a room and ordered me to give him a blowjob. When it began, I was too young to conceive of saying no. Nobody had ever told me to do something harmful. It didn't occur that I should consider what he meant. I looked up at some point and realized it felt wrong. I was not feeling what he was. I stood up and told him to let me go with a voice and depth of self that still shakes me to my core to remember. And he did. I never told anyone until after he committed suicide when he was in his mid-teens. Even then I waited another decade. I learned what it meant to communicate with the entirety of myself that day. I've spent some portion of my life since then learning to live with the reality of that memory and working toward being able to see the present with an open heart. This makes me wonder if he was being abused as well. His family was unfathomably poor, eating army field rations the dad's friends gave them because they couldn't afford food. I'm sure he was being abused, and I'm sure the people who did it to him were abused themselves. It has been a long time since I thought that finding someone to blame would offer me relief. I go to his grave sometimes and hope for peace for us both. My older brother, Dad, and I were having a late afternoon walk. I was 5 years old. My dad always used to have one of those sheath blade type walking sticks. We also never used to walk without our German Shepherd Rex. I never understood the need for all that until that day. While walking, Rex gets all alert and shit. I mean the whole stand still, ears pointed, face of battle I'm gonna fuck someone up type deal. We noticed 2 shady looking guys walking towards us on opposite sides. My dad stops. I had no clue what was going on. One tried dashing towards us. Dad slightly unsheathes his blade. Rexy was barking at the other guy. Next thing I know they ran away. Asked my bro while we were going to bed if they were thieves and he told me they were kidnappers. There were a few cases of kidnapping in the past year. I was super freaked. Your dad sounds like a badass. Where was this legal? He totally was. Love him, rest in peace. I'm from Kenya, so the handcrafted walking sticks with blades were, and I think, in some places still are common. I live in Australia, home of infamous serial killer Ivan Milat. One of his murder victims was a customer of my father, so I regularly saw her every now and then. One day I see the reports on TV and see her listed as murdered. That really hit me. Literally no one is safe. When my dad reacted nervously around an aggressive stranger. Up until this point, I'd encountered weird people and situations, but my parents had remained calm. This one time, I was about 6, 7, or 8, and my dad and I were fishing in a stream and some guy came at us like a complete crazy person. My dad's whole demeanor changed. There was no sweet talk in his voice, it was just, grab your stuff, we have to go. Forget the cokes. Grab the rods. I could tell by his panic and seriousness that this person was a real threat to us. That things could go wrong. Same here. We were leaving Montreal, filling up at a gas station when some big guy started yelling honky this and that. I turned to see some guy lunge at my dad and the two were now fighting. We're all screaming and my mom gets out and some woman pushes her down and tells her to mind her business. My dad keeps knocking the guy down but he keeps coming after him and after what seemed like an eternity the man and woman run off. Dad gets back in the car and tells us the guy was just nuts as we drive off. A bit down the road he notices he's bleeding but doesn't say anything. We stop at a restaurant and he goes inside to pee, but really check out what's up with the blood. Guy knifed him a few times but not too deeply. He didn't tell anyone until we got back to our hotel at Niagara Falls when he told my mom. They got him patched up and he was in pain, but otherwise fine. Anyway, it never crossed my mind that someone would attack my dad. Later learned the guy asked for some money and my dad told him to get out of here. When I was about 8, I was in Walmart wearing a really cute floor-length skirt and coordinating vest, shopping with my mom after church one day. I had asked my mom if I could go look at Barbies, and she said yes, so I went an aisle or two over by myself. It was while I was looking at the dolls that a probably 40-year-old man walked by and grabbed my ass. I immediately went and told my mom, and we told an employee, but the guy was never found. I was 8 when this happened. Dad was 44. I lived in Papua New Guinea with my parents when Sandline happened. It was a really dangerous time for expats, so we were rushed out of the country by the company Dad worked for. When we got to the airport, there were a heap of locals out the front rioting. The security guy with us protected Mom while Dad was carrying me. Dad didn't really need his own security guy cause he's 6'3", looks quite intimidating when he needs to, and even now at 65 he's still surprisingly strong. Someone in the crowd bumped into Dad pretty hard and I slipped out of his arms. Another guy grabbed me by the hair and started dragging me to the back of the crowd. I guess he thought, little white girl, easy target. I saw Dad turn around and his face went from panic to full-blown white-hot rage when he saw me being dragged away. Dad charged through the crowd, did something that the guy let go but he fell on me. Dad kicked him off me, scooped me up and charged back through the crowd into the airport. I had a lot of blood on me, but only a few grazes on my legs, no injuries bad enough to explain the amount of blood. It was until I was in my teens that Mom explained that Dad had grabbed the guy's left shoulder with one hand, his right arm, the arm he was holding me with his other hand and held the guy's arm still while spinning him to the left. Dad broke the guy's arm, bone through the skin break, and had kicked him in the face, so the blood on me was from where Dad had injured him. Edit, so I went to bed after posting this, and wow, it exploded. I woke up to over 100 messages in my inbox and thought, oh Jesus, who did I piss off? Thanks to everyone who expressed concern for me and my family. We all got out safely with no other incidents, and none of us have had lasting physical or mental effects from the incident. I also told my dad that he is now considered a badass by Reddit, and his reply was to laugh and say, about time someone recognized my greatness, tell them all I think they're awesome too. So there you have it, Reddit, badass Santa / Aussie Liam Neeson thinks you're all awesome. When I was 3, my parents took me on a road trip to visit my aunt and uncle. It was a 6-hour car ride, so I fell asleep in the back. When we got to their house they left me sleeping in the vehicle and went inside rather than taking me out of my car seat. My aunt had been working as a clown and thought it would be a great idea to come out and greet me in her costume. So I woke up in a strange place without my mom or dad, and then I see this creepy clown flailing its arms and running towards the car. It was at that moment that I knew the world was a horrifying and untrustworthy place. I still hate clowns to this day. I half expected this to end with your dad getting shot. I was 11 and the cops shot at us. Found the black guy. 10 years old, late 70s. Walking home past the high school and watched a fight unfold between 2 big kids. One almost killing the other from blows to the head. No one there to break it up. Brutal. I was about 15 working my first job at McDonald's. I was taking an order from a guy when suddenly he was shoved into my register from behind. He turns around to see another guy and out of nowhere they start brawling in front of the counter. The guy who started the fight is having the crap beaten out of him and eventually retreats and leaves the store, and the other guy simply returns to my register and keeps ordering. He said he had no idea who that guy was or why he wanted to fight. Actually, an eerily similar story happened to me 2 nights ago. I was with a few people outside McDonald's and an SUV pulled up, and some completely random man hopped out and started running towards one of my friends with his hands up. They started fighting and the person who instigated it began to lose, so he ran inside and jumped behind the counter, but the person working behind it threw him back over, and they got back to fighting. Cops arrive, and now we're all banned from that McDonald's regardless of the fact it was initiated by this other guy. I know a lot of people who never had this belief in the first place, due to early childhood trauma. My dad had serious mental health issues and was abusive. I never felt safe as a kid. I always knew the world wasn't safe and that nobody would protect me. It's been quite hard dialing back and learning that actually it can be a safe place and that most people are pretty decent. My sister, I'll call her Tay, was a sophomore in high school. Tay was gorgeous. She was the cool girl in school, the life of the party, and everyone wanted to be around her. But she started hanging out with a rowdy group of friends and drinking all the time, sneaking out of the house at night. She was sexually promiscuous and she told me stories about giving head to older guys in cars. This was about the time that Gangster's Paradise came out in the movie theaters and everyone wanted to act like a thug in school, myself included. It was stupid, but I think there's a correlation between what we see in the media and how we think we are supposed to act when we are kids. Things were also bad in my family at the time because my parents were getting a divorce, so they had their own problems to deal with and couldn't focus on me and my sister. Kay decided she wanted to live with our grandparents, but really she was just using them. She'd play my parents against them and get whatever she wanted in the end. My parents got divorced and my mom got remarried. We left the state and went to live with her new husband somewhere else. Kay didn't come with us, choosing to stay with our grandparents and my dad and her fast lifestyle. But she had no boundaries and things started to get worse and worse. It was the evening time after school one day. I was in 6th grade, and I remember that I was living in my new state. I was playing at a friend's house. My mom called and told me I needed to come home right away. She wouldn't say why, but I could hear the panic and worry in her voice. She sat me down at the kitchen table and told me that Tay had been gang raped by a bunch of guys on the football team. She went out to a party, drank a lot of alcohol and smoked a lot of weed. Tay was already dating one of the guys on the team, but he apparently thought he could share her with everyone else. Tay told me they left the party, got in a van with a bunch of guys and drove out to the middle of nowhere in the desert. She said she knew what they were going to do and she tried to sober up, but she was too far gone. They stopped the van and she said she tried to tell them no and that she didn't want to do this, but it didn't matter. All the guys took turns on her that night. It was awful and I can only imagine how powerless and weak she felt. She was physically harmed in her private parts and the doctors thought she wouldn't be able to have children. This part is graphic, but I asked Tay why she didn't keep fighting, but she said, what was she supposed to do? She said while one guy had sex with her she was forced to give oral sex to another guy, and that eventually it was like she was just on autopilot trying to survive. When they finally finished with her, they all got in the van and dropped her off at a friend's house. That's when Tay was finally able to get help. Thankfully, one of the guys that had been there testified against all the other guys that were there. Apparently this one guy didn't want to do anything to her, and he didn't, but he stayed there and stood by while all the other guys did. I remember my dad and grandparents going to court when all the guys were getting tried. But because they were minors, all of them walked with only a few months of juvenile hall. They just got away with it and we were powerless to do anything. My dad couldn't go all Liam Neeson and kill each one of these guys. We were absolutely helpless to do anything about the situation. Tay obviously left the state and came to live with my mom. I remember my grandpa had to fly with her because my mom thought Tay would run away, and she probably would have. My grandpa was getting up there in years and I remember seeing him hobble through the airport terminal with Tay. He's a strong man, but I could see that he was crying, and when he saw my mom he hugged her and told her he was sorry. He was so sorry. He felt personally responsible that this had happened to Tay, and it was heartbreaking to see him break down like this. Tay went to counseling meetings all the time, and I remember she had to keep getting HIV tests to make sure she hadn't contracted anything. My mom and I would go to her meetings and wait in the lobby. We'd play cribbage together and eat Lunchables. And I applaud my mom for making the best out of this situation and getting Tay the help she needed. In one of my favorite books, Blood Meridian, there's this passage after the Glanton Gang massacres this peaceful Indian tribe of women and children. I can't quote the line, but it said the older Indian woman righted the overturned pots and blew into the smoldering fire and set a plate on it. The woman was shocked and grieved at the massacre, but the only thing she could do was to keep living life. I think my mom displayed that sort of strength for all of us. We just kept living. I remember getting so angry and feeling so helpless and wishing I could do something for Tay, but I couldn't. It was an awful feeling seeing my family like this, and I learned real quick that the world can be a dangerous place with dangerous people in it.